everyone, I'm super excited about this week's project because I'm going to teach you how to make a basic pillowcase in 3 sizes: standard, queen, and king. It's super easy, and we're even going to demystify how to tackle French seams. So one of the things I love the most about this Pillowcase Basics pattern is it's going to give you all of the supply lists for a standard, queen, or king size pillow, whether you want to make 1, 2, or 4. And so let's go ahead and pop up that supply card so you can see what you need. Teach you how to make 1 king size pillow today. So in order to do that, you're going to need 1 yard of your main pillow fabric. I've used this beautiful floral from the Color Me Pretty collection by Stephanie Organez for Andover. Then you'll need 1/3 of a yard for your cuff and 1/8 of a yard if you decide to do this optional accent strip. So I went ahead and I have trimmed all of these to the sizes that I need. So to start with, for the accent little flange, you're going to cut a 2-inch by 42-inch strip, and I went ahead and pressed it in half long ways so it's ready to go. So we can go ahead and set this aside. So then for the cuff, the size you are going to need is 9 inches by 42 inches. And so I have my fabric trimmed here, 9 inches tall by 42 inches long. And then for the main pillow fabric, the size is 33 by 42. So I'm going to move these sample pillows out of the way so I can show you how we're going to get started with this. We're going to begin by opening up our cuff. That is step number 1. I'm going to go ahead and give this a little press just to make sure everything's going to lay nice and flat. All right, here we go. I'm actually going to set these over here just so I have plenty of working room. And we can lay this out across here. And then next, we're going to take our little flange piece. We're going to line that up across. And then we're going to open up the body of our pillow. And we're going to put the right side down. So this is right sides up. We're going to put this one right sides down. And of course it should be the same width. So if it's not lining up, you probably just need to spin it just like I did. And now we're going to put some pins in here to help everything stay in place. Just a couple to get us started. Make sure our ends are staying matched up as well. There we go, and one more on this side. Then I'll add a few more here in just a second. Ooh. There we go. Okay. So now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and roll up this part of our pillow. And I like to give it a little fold to get started. And then we're just going to roll, roll, roll. And now we're going to take and we're going to match up this bottom piece of our cuff across the top. And so same thing. We're going to pin this in place. You can even add a few more pins because we want to make sure all of these raw edges are going to stay lined up nicely. So I'm going to take my time and get this all pinned, and then I'll meet you back here. Okay, so you can see I have pinned all along the edge where my raw edges line up. And so now we can take this to the sewing machine and we're going to sew all the way down this straight edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So let's go ahead and do that. Of course, be careful, watch out for those pins. I am gonna go ahead and move my pin cushion back here so I can get started. And then we will just zoom down and pull those pins out as we go. I am gonna back stitch there at the start just because we're gonna have a little tension on that later on. Okay, almost to the end here. And I am just going to back stitch again at the end. Okay, all done. We have sewn all the way down that long seam, and so now we're going to reach in here and we're going to pull out our pillowcase. And it will turn this right sides out. That's why it's important to back stitch a little bit there, just to really secure it, so as we tug on it, it's not going to pop those seams. Ta-da! Look at that. All right, so now we're going to take this over to the ironing board. We're going to give this a good press, and then I'm going to just do a little line of top stitching to make this lay really nicely. So let's press it first. I want the flange to be going back towards the body of the pillowcase, and of course the cuff fabric to be up here on the top. So I'm just going to press between those two and get everything to lay nice and smooth. We're just going to keep pressing, making sure that that flange is pointed towards the body of our pillowcase, not towards the cuff, and that we have a nice crisp edge along the cuff. And so here's how that looks once we've finished pressing. Turns out really nice. And now I just like to add a line of top stitching here along the cuff, just to help the flange stay laying down, and I just think it gives it a really nice professional finish. So if you want to use a decorative stitch or change your thread color, you absolutely could. Just for ease, I'm just going to use the white, but I am going to lengthen my stitch length just a bit because I like to do that when I top stitch. So I am just following about 1/8 of an inch away from that seam between the flange and the cuff. And we'll just do that all the way down. I'm going to go ahead and shorten my stitch length back to normal so I don't make a mistake later. And there we go, our top stitching is complete. And so if you have a serger or you don't want to mess with French seams at this point, you could just fold this right sides together. Make sure it's all lined up across the bottom. And I would always start up here because I want my cuffs to match up. And so you would use a 1/2 inch seam allowance if you have a serger, and you would just make sure that these are matching, and you'd come all the way down the long side and across the bottom. But let's talk about how to do a fringe seam so you have no raw edges. So to do that, we're actually going to put these wrong sides together, just like so. And I have a little piece here that's kind of hanging over, and the rest of it is matching up nicely. So I'm just going to use my ruler to trim off that overhang, make sure I have a nice clean edge up here. Perfect. And so now we are going to start by sewing a 1/4 inch seam down this long side and across the bottom. So let's do that first. If you want to pin, you totally can. I don't really find it necessary on these big long seams. So I'm just going to do a scant 1/4 inch here. Again, making sure that my cuff and my flange are all lining up nicely. And then we can just sail down this side. Just continue to line up as you go. All right, I just went ahead and sewed off the end, and now I can come back, make sure my bottom edge is lined up, and do the exact same thing across that short side. All right, so we have those first stitches all done. You can see we went a 1/4 inch around both sides. And so now all we're gonna do is turn this inside out. And so then we're gonna take this over to the iron, and you just wanna be really careful here to make sure your corner is really sharp and that all of your seams are pressed as evenly as possible. So you can kind of roll those like I'm showing you here, but I'm going to do this at the ironing board, and then I'll meet you back here once I have it all pressed. All right, so we have this all pressed. You can see how crisp our edges are. We rolled all those seams and turned our corners so they're really sharp. And so now we are ready to do our final row of stitching. This is all that makes a French seam. And so we are going to take a 1/2 inch seam allowance now so that that first seam is completely enclosed. And so let's go ahead and do that over at the machine. So I have moved my needle over so that I have a wider seam allowance. So we're going to back stitch a few stitches as well, just to really anchor that. And then we can just zoom all the way down this side. And I will meet you back here when I have all of this sewing done. All right, we have finished our fringe seam. It is as easy as that. Hopefully this took some of that fear away for you, because it really is not hard. It's just, you know, a little bit different than what we typically do. So we can turn this right sides out, and we have a beautiful finished pillowcase with no raw edges at all. Just push these corners in. If you have any little threads that pop through, you can just trim those off it's nothing to worry about. And so let's talk about the 3 different sizes that are in the pattern. Of course, this is the king size, and I have one more king size done here, as well as a queen size, which is just the next size down, and a standard. And so let me lay these out so that you can see the difference in the sizes. Kind of stack them on top of each other. Here's that king size that we made at the beginning. And then here is the queen. And here is the standard. And so the pattern includes all the sizes, all of the yardage requirements, and the instructions so you can make whatever you need, whether you need 1, 2, or 4 of these pillows. I hope you found this really helpful, and I will see you next time on At Home. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching At Home. We're so excited to be almost 1 million quilters strong here at Missouri Star. And so if you haven't already joined our family, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of all of our future tutorials, and we'll see you soon.